So we're now in the 6th month of this tent city in Oppenheimer Park. We started writing letters to BC Housing in the city of Vancouver in November, and we've seen numbers as high as about 50. Last week I counted 51 tents, which is one of the record highs, and yesterday was 50. And it's also 6 weeks since a motion was passed by the City of Vancouver and the Parks Board about making people in the park a little bit more comfortable and offering support. It was called Helping Campers in Oppenheimer Park. Since that was passed 6 weeks ago, we haven't seen any movement on any of the points and recommendations in the motion. The motion called for working with BC Housing to find housing for people in the park, to provide 24-hour washroom access and peer support, to provide a warming facility, and to provide storage for people staying in the park. And none of that has happened. It's been 6 weeks. But instead what we're seeing is these raids that are happening every 2 weeks. So on a daily basis there are visits from the city, and they do a checkup, and they have authorities and officials checking on the tents. And then every Wednesday there's a major raid like this where we see tents being taken, belongings being taken. People are asked to move to the sides of the park. Every week a number of people are displaced, so the numbers go down on Wednesdays after the weekly raid, and then they go up again during the week. One of the campers has told me that one of the first times this happened, he packed all his things on a dolly to move it down to the end of the park, and everything got taken. So people are losing belongings, their valuables, their ID, photos, paperwork that they need, important things, and their belongings. We see today as a sunny day, but in April we actually had more than half of the days were rain. I think it was 15 out of 22 days were rainy, and we had about 10 days of below average temperatures. So there's many times where this happens, where people are being displaced and the weather is inclement. So people are standing outside in the cold, they're standing outside in the rain, their belongings are going outside, they have wet bedding, wet tents, and then everything has to go back inside. So they're in damp and mold and wet things, and being in a cold situation when they're already vulnerable and have health conditions. So it creates dehumanizing conditions where people are constantly being displaced. They're already homeless and they're already vulnerable, but they're even more dehumanized by this kind of behavior. We also know that the city has announced, or the Parks Board has announced, there is going to be seating, capital reseating, and that means there could be further displacement. There'll be an area that's fenced off for reseating. We're concerned that it's going to further displace people that are staying here. We want to invite the mayor and councillors to walk through the park. So we're sending out an invitation to mayor and councillors to do a walkthrough of the park to see the conditions with us. And I want to quote from a professor, SFU professor, Nick Waldley, who talks about the way people are dehumanized and kind of some illegal conditions that exist in the downtown east side. He says that the temptation is to treat an irregular situation as a state of exception, a departure from a legal normal condition, a clear divide between the legal and the illegal, and it's a wider problematic discourse that treats poor neighborhoods like the downtown east side, treating housing conditions as a space of criminality, deviance, and exception, and they're imagined as outlaw zones. However, we've learned from origins in the global south and elsewhere that we can challenge this distinction and the pernicious work that such geographic imagery suggests. So we're seeing that this kind of behavior is acceptable in this area, in the downtown east side, because people are marginalized. We're saying that the motion was passed that was calling for people to be supported and to provide services and support to the people in the parks. We want to see that happen, and an end to the raids. And finally, I want to note that the Regent Hotel and the Balmoral that we closed last year and the year before, the landlords only had to pay a very small fine. So there should be increased penalties for that kind of behavior, where people are not treated as they would in other communities. And if that fine is increased, perhaps there would be more funding for supporting people in this kind of situation, so they're not experiencing lack of housing. So we're going to talk to one of the tenters who actually experienced a previous tent city and was part of a Supreme Court case challenging the legality of housing in tent cities. We also have here John Miller, who is the Vice President of the Public Health Association. And John may want to speak on health conditions that are caused by homelessness and people living in these kind of conditions and circumstances.
Oh, sure. Speak loud. Hi, I'm a public health professional, and one of the things that we note is that the number of deaths related to homelessness in this province is just going rapidly up. And what we're seeing behind us here today, I find absolutely shocking. People's human rights are being violated by taking their stuff, kicking all of their tents and destroying the property. And it just adds to their health problems and increases the likelihood that they'll get sick and die. So the solutions to this aren't simple. We need an effective poverty reduction strategy to get people with adequate basic income. We need to provide more social housing, and we need to provide more mental health and addiction supports. It's what I have described as or what the city itself has described as a humanitarian crisis. And for taxpayers, they need to know two things. For every person homeless in this city, it's costing taxpayers $55,000 a year per head to maintain them on the street because of the health care, the policing, the crime, the courts, the corrections, all of this stuff. It's costing us a huge amount as taxpayers, but to put them in adequate housing and adequate supports, it only costs about $37,000 per head. So there's a fabulous business case. The city has agreed to do a particular business case. Hope they're going to act on that. Business plan. So the other major misunderstanding I think that drives this is a lot of the public and many of the staff here believe these people are worthless people, that they've done this by their own choice and it's their choice to live in a place like this. The data shows us this isn't true. Most people here have fallen into this by chance, by circumstance, losing a job, losing a relationship, or being rent evicted, whatever. I mean, many reasons people wind up like this, but what we know is once they wind up poor and homeless, their ability to make good decisions deteriorates, so then they get into drugs and other problems. So this is a soluble problem, but the public has to understand that they need to get behind solving it and support the government in solving poverty, homelessness, and mental health and addictions problems.
Well said.
Well said.
You wouldn't mind.
Fiona York, coordinator and administrator of the Carnegie Community Action Project. And we have one more speaker here, Laura Monroe. She's with Our Homes Can't Wait. She'll talk about the conditions of the park.
Yes. Well, first of all, yes, it's unceded territory for Aboriginal people, and as you can see, there's even a totem pole. So anywhere you look around here, it's unceded land that belongs to Aboriginal people. And it's just like they're the ones that are mostly being displaced from, years of being pushed down, degraded, dehumanized. It's like, this is unreal. Like, how can this be like over the centuries of Aboriginal people welcoming people into their land, and yet this is what we're being treated like this, of being thrown off our own land, telling us that we can't stay here, we can't do what we like. This is the only possible way people can survive, with no homes, nowhere to go, and this is the only place. This is just basically their only home. And then being traumatized by getting up early in the morning, to having to put all your stuff together, being kicked off, and then it's like, this is unreal. Like, a lot of people lose their stuff that have been that's treasured to them the most, and then they're losing them by being tossed in the garbage. It's just like, oh my God, what is going on here? 21st century, and we still have freaking homeless people, which is unreal. It's just like, everybody, when you die, you can't take it with you, the rich people, we all get buried in the ground, same thing, can't take nothing with you. But, out of respect out of people. Like, you know, have the heart, the decency to hold some of these people. It's like, wouldn't it be more gratifying for yourself and to legacy of yourself and your family that, oh, you know what, we did something good for these people. They're not being left out in the rain, in the snow. They're not being kicked. Like, you know, there's just so many things that I just want to say about it, and it's just like frustrating. I've been fighting for our homes can't wait for like nearly 4 years already, and it just hasn't gotten anywhere. Politicians keep pushing it over and saying it's not feasible, it can't be done. It can be done. Any person with common sense can understand, like, you can't treat adults like kids and for them to be monitored all the time from where they live. Like, this is incredible. Like, there's gotta be like, it's just, we can afford, with all the millions that are going around in this place, just a few minor places of where to house these people. Like 58, we've been fighting for that for so long. After all these years, you would think that, like, you know, we would have had that by now, and then prove that yes, we can, like, you know, people can sustain their own. They can live there. They can thrive with each other, helping each other. That's what they do here. It's like they help each other out. It's just, it's unbelievable. And then the poverty rate, especially, like, we are way, way below poverty line for people that are on assistance. How do you expect them to get any place when they can't even afford not even a studio or anything? Like, the only thing they can afford is having the tent and whatever belongings they have in there. This is just heartbreaking seeing this. It's just, I just don't understand.
Poverty line is 10,000. These guys make 6,000 a year.
Yeah.
It's 4,000 under the poverty line.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So can I introduce you as Red?
Yeah. Stephen Robinson.
So we have
AKA Red.
Stephen Robertson. He's been staying in the park for quite a while, and he's going to talk about his experience with being displaced.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephen Robinson, AKA Red. Street name. Oh, do you want me to talk like I regularly talk? There you go. I've been homeless since Tent City 4 years ago. Pivot and DJ Larkin asked me to put my life story on the line for everybody to hear that it's not just addicts and poor people and people with disabilities that are homeless in Vancouver. It's also people like me. I grew up in England and I have a very good education. Went to private school. My parents spent a lot of money on my education, and that's a joke. And I had a full hip replacement. I have a career in the movie industry, a very good career, and I had a full hip replacement at 42, which meant that I had to learn how to walk again, which meant that I couldn't go to work. And so here I am, homeless, and trying to figure out how to get by the best way I can. And I ended up camping, and I ended up in Tent City. So I ended up helping to run Tent City, and I thought I was doing a good job until it was over, and they ended up taking all my belongings. And that was 4 years ago. I ended up living on the block in front of the Bottle Depot where it used to be on Hastings Street. For the first time, I got to experience Skid Row, and I didn't like it. I still don't like it. But I made the best of things, and I've made this place my home because I have no choice. All these people here are my family, and it's horrible what I'm seeing. I decided that I was gonna.
What's going on in the
Yeah, okay, so what's happened is they didn't do much about the social housing like they said they would. They built some of these modular housing, but they didn't build enough of them. And then they were giving the modular housing to people that already had places, which I don't understand. So that meant that there was still an excess of people that needed a place to live. Now, a lot of people don't want to live in shelters, and they don't want to be under the gun and told what to do. They much prefer to be in a tent. So we come to Oppenheimer Park, and we are trying to coexist with the City of Vancouver, and they are making life extremely difficult for us, taking our belongings, being verbally aggressive, having police with weapons, and they also have pitchforks that can also be used intimidatingly, and it's just it's not a very nice thing to be homeless and then have to deal with this on an everyday basis. If you don't follow the rules, if you don't kiss their ass, they will take everything, and they will make you feel belittled. They will gut you, and it's a horrible feeling, and it's been extremely hard to do anything after an experience like that. Especially go out there and look for a place, or get ID, or talk to social housing, or talk to social assistance, or do anything you got to do to try and get in front of the people instead of behind the people. And I tell you, like, I know from experience, you end up going and just like going into a shell and just like sulking and feeling sorry for yourself. It's not, but it's really not your fault. Like it's done to you, right? So it's extremely horrible experience.